Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I promise you one thing that this panel is going to do some wonderful revelations about the topic that we have today called Enterprise Connect and how does enterprises going to look at the telecommunication companies and their partner networks going forward. My name is Aditya Rath. This is my sixth year with the firm. I'm a partner focused on telecom, media, and tech. I sit in the business consulting practices, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome the panelists. I'm not going to take the thunder away, so I've requested each one of them to maybe spend 30 seconds to a minute to introduce themselves, but introduce themselves in their own way as to what do they bring in to the table beyond what they do for a living. So let's get started. Alan, start with you.
Thank you very much, Aditya, and I'm very thrilled to be part of this panel today. My name is Alain Sanchez, and I'm the EMEA CISO for Fortinet, which is, as you perhaps know, one of the leading vendors in cybersecurity. And I have, at the same time, as a job, to talk to CISOs on a daily basis as colleagues, but also as customers. Both on the enterprise, which is the topic of today, but also on the service provider side. And the reason, I guess, behind having a CISO as part of a vendor is a little bit what Miles Davis used to say about jazz. It changes every day. And if you play it with good jazz musicians, you realize it changes every day. And cybersecurity changes every day. New threats, new solutions, new technologies. And being with people like you, you are like my band of jazz musicians, and I want to learn from you at the same time as playing along with you.
Lovely, Alan. Prateek.
Hi guys, my name is Prateek Pashine. I work with Reliance Geo, and topic is enterprise and transformation and the digital transformation. So what do we do for a living? We try to enable our customers, which are the smallest of the small businesses, all the way to large multinationals, in their digital journey. And we will talk about digital solutions, digital enablement. You will not hear the word telco from my side because that's a bad word as far as we are concerned. Besides talking to customers and learning from them, talking to this elite panel, pandemic has been has got a lot of hardship to a lot of people. But I think one good thing it has done to me is I've saved 3.5 hours of commute time, and I've plowed back about half of that into cycling. So I have now clocked about 6,000 kilometers in the last 6 months. So that's what keeps me going. Besides getting bouquets from customers and helping them in this journey, in this pandemic, helping them encounter the obstacles that they are facing. So we'll be happy to talk and learn from this elite panel over the next 30 to 45 minutes.
Excellent, Prateek. Ganesh.
Thanks, Aditya. My name is Ganesh Lakshminarayanan. I should be here, actually. I am very, very new to telecom. I probably should be in the participants learning from this panel, but I'm here because I joined Airtel. I don't know about jazz instruments, Alan. I can only play mridangam. I don't know how that goes with jazz, so I will try. We are very proud to be a telco. I would say that I joined Airtel because it's a telecom business. I sold and serviced hardware for a living. And I think telcos have a lot to offer in the digital world. We'll talk as we go along, but really, really happy to be here. Other warning is that I am 52 years old and I normally fall off after 9:30. So my team will take over after 9:30.
Perfect. Greg, next up.
Yes, hi. Thank you for having me. Greg Zweig with Ribbon Communications. For the last 2 decades plus, I've been focused primarily on enterprise communications of all different types, unified communications, those sorts of things. And just for context, for some of the audience that doesn't know Ribbon, we're a relatively new brand name, but it reflects a heritage of a number of companies. And lucky enough that most everyone here on the panel is already a Ribbon customer. But our heritage reflects GenBand, Sonos networks. It goes all the way back to the Nortel days, and it includes most recently our merger with ECI Telecom.
Thank you, Greg. Kartik.
Yeah, hi everyone. Absolutely delighted to be with all of you today. My name is Kartik Narayan, and I head the large business part of the enterprise, vertical for Vodafone Idea. Over the last 9 to 10 months, it's I think one of the more exhilarating things have been literally speaking to customers, which I would not have managed to do. Let's say a customer in Delhi, the next hour a customer in Pune, the next hour a customer in Chennai, all across India. And I think that's been, I think, one of the more phenomenal advantages which have kind of come out of this entire pandemic. Outside of all of this, I think the thing which I've completely missed and I don't get time enough for is golf. I'm totally kind of addicted to it, and I'm just trying to see as and when it's totally possible, when the golf course is open, I'm looking to just get back to it. So that's pretty much about me. Look forward to learning from all of you.
Well, fabulous. In case some of them who joined a couple of minutes late, they would be wondering, there's a mridangam player, there's jazz, there's somebody who's going to drive, there's somebody who's got a legacy, and somebody who's going to be playing golf. Well, it is you're at the right place. It is India Mobile Congress, and we are talking about Enterprise Connect. I'm going to kickstart with something which is, and I'm going to be a little bit more provocative to the way Prateek and Ganesh both responded, and maybe with Ganesh we'll kind of start with you. What do you see as the big difference that a telecommunication giant like you is doing versus a year or a year and a half back? And what is that whole Enterprise Connect meaning to you right now as we sit in the month of December 2020? What if you can double click on that journey that has happened? And I ask you this from 2 or 3 lenses just to help our listeners. This whole Enterprise Connect is about driving your enterprise businesses. They see you as very, very critical component in providing the pipe, making sure that businesses run, and they learn from you as to what more they can do with their digital networks. But are they looking at you differently now? Are they seeing what else can you provide? Do they see a different partner in you? And how have things changed over the last 9, 10, 12 months? Ganesh, you can go. You're mute, Ganesh. Sorry, apologies.
Yeah. So I'll share with you what I've learned. I think when I joined Airtel and I was interviewing for this job. So I told them, look, I sold in service hardware for a living. I don't know anything about telecom. And then our CEO laughed and said, look, we are not a telecom company anymore. In the B2B world, we should almost brand ourselves as we also sell SIM. That is how we should brand ourselves in the B2B world. I think what is interesting is, I went from a Dell MNC to a startup. And I see that every one of the startups which claim to be a digital enabler is built on telecom. They enjoy the 20x valuation with no profits on all of what we have built. I mean, we have built this infrastructure and produced all this minutes and data, which somebody is doing, a whole lot of magic and getting this valuation where we are at 2x valuation and getting stuck with all these taxes, which I was very surprised about. Why am I getting punished for being a good person and innovating the whole ecosystem, not only the digital economy, but also all these startups? So I think what I have seen Airtel do is, and I'm sure all other companies are doing, is we want to be part of that value chain. I think we have all the 3 layers, and I'll talk a little bit more, the connectivity, the infrastructure, and solutions, which will make us a big digital enabler and do it at scale. There are a lot of great startups who are coming into this world, who have benefited from the telecom infrastructure. What I think a telco brings is the security and stability and scale a startup can't bring. I mean, I see a lot of startups today looking to, ask Airtel or Vodafone, I'm sure Jio, to partner and get scale out of them, right? So one thing is we are basically saying, look, we want to participate in the forward integrating value parts of this solution. So whether it is customer communication, whether it is IoT, whether it is enabling customers to connect to cloud, telcos are beginning to look at different parts of the value chain and getting more share of it. And we are going to do the same thing at Airtel as well. Because we don't want to be supplying minutes and data to someone else and they package it to something and make more money. I think we can do a better job than them, and that's what you're trying to do.
Perfect, Ganesh. I'm going to get you in here. And the reason I wanted to pivot on two areas. Ganesh talked about using tech very differently now. You've been in a legacy where Ribbon has seen the evolution, and as you mentioned in an introduction, most of the players on this screen are at least your customers in some sense. Has the tech changed, or has the telecommunication giants started using tech differently? That's a binary question. And if you can double click on how the tech has evolved in the last 12 to 18 months for everyone to kind of use it differently.
Well, I think the interesting thing, I'll take your question, I might answer it just a little differently. And that is, I think what's really the most interesting thing about the last 12 months is that the customers have changed. So I always talk about it, and I'm sure others on the panel can appreciate this, and to some extent, we as a vendor are challenged with this, is that, the hardest thing to do is to get people to change. Right? I mean, if you wanted to, if you're a CIO of a large enterprise and you say, well, I'm going to roll out a new tool, you pick any tool on earth. Your first worry is what's going to happen the day it goes live. Are all my customer service people going to be, and my help desk going to be inundated with 1 million calls? And is everybody from the CEO down to the person who pushes a broom going to tell you, oh, you're an idiot. Why did you pick this solution? And it doesn't work. And the buttons aren't in the same place as the old solution, right? But what happened with this pandemic, and I'm stealing someone's line, is we had, 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months. And I think the most sort of compelling thing is that everyone learned how to use these tools. Even today, as our group, we all logged on to the tool that KPMG provided, and in 10 seconds, everybody was on, right? That's a huge transformation. And so I think if you're a CIO of a large organization, the really powerful thing about what's happened is suddenly your entire employee base knows how to use these tools. And they know how to, generally speaking, they know how to use them well. And if they didn't learn them at work, they learned them at home so they could talk to their friends and family. And so I think that's incredibly powerful, because I think what it's done is it's transitioned how everyone thinks about communications. And I don't think that there's anything that's happened, at least in my career in communications, that's ever been more powerful, because we've been talking about the availability of these tools for decades, right? I mean, how many people have read the article, when is video going to take off? Well, I think we know the answer, right? Apparently it's 2020. So to me, I think that's the most impactful thing that's happened. And I think whatever happens from here on in terms of our ability to explain the value proposition to our customers, this is a baseline. And I think it might have been another decade before we had gotten here. This is a terrible way to do it, for sure, but it's definitely, I think ultimately it's going to help business from that perspective.
Absolutely, Greg. The perfect way to answer. I would not have expected anything different. Prateek, you hit the ball out of the park. Somebody who follows cricket, by saying that you don't want to be seen or known as a telco, but a digital company. And that's quite a bold move, given the fact that that's how we started the journey on the last 12 to 18 months, by seeing telcos taking different sets of solutions to the enterprises. What's made the shift for you? Is it technology fungibility? Is it Greg's point that, hey, it's been around for a long time? Is it the customer behavior? How does Geo see this whole transition that is happening in the landscape of the enterprise?
So I think the answer is in what Ganesh said and Greg said, and maybe something more. But the way we see it is, I'll give you one data point. In 2017, the tech spending by a CIO was lower than the tech spending by a CMO. And that was a tectonic shift. And when I say CMO, I'm talking of businesses or business owners, function heads spending tech money. They're having a far more fungible budget than a CIO. And a telco conversation is a CIO conversation. It's about bits, bytes, latency, packet loss, and jitter. And the reason why somebody walks away with the cake or the valuation is because a telecom company gets restricted to having this conversation, and hence never gets the attention of a CEO, never gets the attention of a chief marketing officer. And I think pandemic has done nothing but further accelerate this tech spend beyond the pocket of CIO. And we'll give you some examples, and that's what we've learned over these few months. Nobody wanted to talk of pipes in these last 6 months. Yes, first activity was to say, can you make my business continue? Can you enable my employees with connectivity? We all did that, and there was almost no blip for most companies, and they transitioned to work from home. But more importantly, how do I ensure BCP? How do I make sure that my customer responses happen even if there are I don't have laptops to give to my agents at home? And that's where we led with digital solutions. For example, we have in our fold the haptic solution, which is what the government of India has used for the Corona help desk. But we enabled the virtual assistant enabled by haptic to companies like Disney Hotstar when they were saying, how am I going to respond during IPL time? Or Ola Cabs to how do we respond to drivers and the riders at the same time? Or a Kotak Life. So what we have done is solve customers' problem, and that is his first. This is what catches the CEO's attention. Connectivity and a redundancy of a connectivity is not going to be in his radar. And I think if you want to get one fungible money, because unlike CIO who has a fixed budget, all other businesses have a ROI concept, saying that okay, if I do this, I will save X number of resources or Y number of cost, and I will get a payback in 6 months or 9 months. That bucket is very, very fungible. And two, that's what catches the attention. And you are truly moving from solving technology problem to business problems. And that's why digital company is that much more valuable. Any market metrics you take, as also profitable, and more importantly, gets far better customer centricity or customer connect than telco ever would be able to do.
Lovely, Prateek. Alain, I'm going to bring you in, and both the three of Ganesh, Greg, and Prateek kind of tipped the scale by saying that it's understanding a serious change in the expectation, the stakeholder mapping. Alain, how do you see as a service provider, as a partner to this, what is your change script looking like?
Well, the change is about, as I believe Greg and Prateek have very well pointed out, is coming from the users that all of a sudden have required an enormous amount of service coming from the telco almost overnight. And let me tell you something, maybe you guys are too modest to say it on this call, but I can say it. You have saved our economies. If we are on this call today, if I can have 95% of my people working from home today and still making my numbers, it's because somewhere in between this pocket of expertise and this isolated work, there is a bunch of telcos that not only move the packets, but are able to associate to these packets the proper quality of services, the proper level of cybersecurity, and the solutions that have all of a sudden enabled our economies to carry on. So don't be ashamed of being a telco, right? The telco that you are today are not the telco that moved voice on an analog signal on a twisted pair maybe 20 years ago. But still, the industry needs you. And the word carrier grade is still a synonymous of quality and security and connectivity. So what I see is the change of mentality and perhaps a better recognition of the size, the scalability, the diversity of the services that you guys were able to reinvent and to make available almost overnight. So I think we always have to have these two engines. One engine is the diversity, the creativity, the granularity that small enterprise and big enterprise are going to be needing more and more in the next future. And in the other end, there is this ability to make sense of all these requirements, to prioritize these traffics, to maintain them, and to carry them around. We need people to carry these packets around, guys. Don't give up on that. We still love you for that.
Well, thank you, Alain. You've stolen the thunder, because I was going to thank everybody on this panel to say that they're as good as COVID warriors. For me personally, for our organization, for our entire ecosystem, we are pretty big, a larger team, and we never faced a single problem. But thank you, Alain, for sharing that.
We just want you to pay a little bit more on your telephone bill. Little bit more, 250 rupees.
Okay, we're going to come back to Kartik, and I'm going to go back to Ganesh on that one. Kartik, the speed and agility that was required to make this transformation, how does Vodafone Idea see it? You with large enterprises, was it because you've been listening to them, and it was just the opportune moment that as Greg mentioned, as Alain mentioned, that it happened, Prateek mentioned it got fast forwarded. Was it that, or was it because Vodafone Idea at some fundamental core has started changing the enterprise connect, and how do they see this? How do they see the enterprise customer?
No, I think great question. I think as Greg mentioned, I think the entire transformation, which would have ideally taken a long time, pretty much took 2 months, and I think that's true for us as well. In many ways, we got pushed, by our customers and by the circumstances, starting the COVID period. But if I really look back, I think it's a bit of a dichotomous, situation as it started out. I think a lot of business was really hurting, and hence it was not that everybody was really looking at going and spending and getting the new shiny technology in to transform themselves, right? So I think that was something, everybody kind of has to kind of keep in mind as you kind of approach your customers. I think if you really baseline it, while there is, obsession about, doing the entire automation, artificial intelligence, etc., but in reality is, I think digital transformation takes more than just getting in the latest technology or the latest connectivity, right? It's across three levers. It is as much about technology, it's as much about processes, it's as much about people. I think anybody trying to do the transformation, I think, has to kind of, go through and understand all the three parts, right? And for us, if I really reflect back in these last 7, 8, 9 months and try to put three distinct areas where customers have kind of come to us, I think the first really is where customers come and literally at the basic level saying, can you make me a digital customer? The second part is when they come across and saying, listen, can you make me a digital workplace? Right? I think if there is anything which has happened in this pandemic is what I call democratization of IT, right? A lot of services used to be very elitist. It's now come down to the absolute last level. And the last thing is clearly is enabling the entire digital business thing, from warehouse to supply chains, etc., and all that. So these are three, large areas where we've seen that. But going back to the first point, customers are really challenging us and asking us three hard questions. I think the first hard question is, and it's quite simple: can you help improve my top line? We are in a pandemic. You can't do that. Can you help improve my customer experience or NPS? Or if you can't even do that, then obviously the more easier question is, can you help me improve my bottom line in some fashion or some efficiency, etc., and all that. I think whenever we talk about digital transformation or any of this stuff, I think we have to really ask ourselves, as techos that I call it, and including our customers, saying some of these, harder questions before we enable our customers with any solution or options.
Thank you, Kartik. That's a new one, the tech goes. Greg, I'm going to come back to you, and then maybe we'll do a quick round. A lot of our viewers and listeners today, want to demystify this whole definition of digital transformation. Now, is opening a channel a digital transformation? Going to create an e-marketplace a digital transformation? Moving yourself to cloud a digital transformation? What exactly is a definition when you double click the word digital transformation, and how do you kind of see when somebody who is providing you the pipe or the data service suddenly becoming your digital transformation partner? What's the perception change that is going to happen?
Oh, that's an awful big question. I hope that nobody else plans to speak for the rest of the period. For me, I think it's everything you mentioned. And it's going to vary depending on the size and sophistication of a business, right? I think generally speaking, I look at it from the outside in and say it's really about how customers connect with you. Now, obviously, not every business has the same sort of relationship with their customers. Some very intimate because of they're a B2C company. Others are more B2B. But I see transformation from that perspective. There's certainly, I don't mean to understate the importance of changing internal processes, because oftentimes that's ultimately what actually drives velocity and the customer experience. But I think in my mind, digital transformation really is about how do customers connect? Can they easily buy? Can they easily communicate with you through digital interfaces? And I do think historically in our industry, it's been a big challenge, particularly, if we look myopically at the telecommunications industry. I think we've often believed that our products are so unique that they can't be transformed. Oh, you have to talk to a customer service agent to buy it. You must call into our toll-free number. And I think the thing that I see in the industry as a whole, I think we as an industry are beginning to recognize, hey, there are people out there who are taking incredibly complicated solutions and transforming those into easy to use, easy to buy, easy to consume digital processes. So there's no excuse for us not looking at our own businesses and doing the exact same thing. So that's kind of how I perceive it. And if I looked inside of our own organization, I'm sure that some of the customers here on the panel could give me a half a dozen easy examples of where they would like to see us make those changes and make it easier for their service technicians to get information about our products and so on and so forth. So I don't think there's an answer. I think it's going to be a decades-long process as we move forward, and every time we move the goalpost, we'll just keep moving an inch at a time forward. So whatever seemed to be the goal will ultimately be the status quo.
Perfect, great. I wasn't expecting an pointed answer. I'm glad you said that, because people do enter into this whole realm of digital transformation thinking there's a silver bullet, or in the movie of Matrix is one of those colored capsules that Neo has to have to make sure that he moves further on the matrix. Ganesh, I want your help to take this a little bit deeper into the heartland India. So when we talk of digital transformation and how telecommunication players have been able to transform, it's not just the large enterprises, or it's not the medium one, even the small mom and pop show around the corner. It's the small enterprise which has really struggled to keep the plant running in this time. They've also been benefited. Ganesh, what does digital transformation mean to them in heartland India? Because they don't necessarily have the budgets to make those huge investments. Plus, it has to, as Kartik mentioned, it has to make some business sense. So, if you could, kind of bring it to life with a few examples from the Airtel's domain, that would be really lovely to get some more color onto digital transformation.
I'll give you two examples. One example is the biggest retail chain in India. I won't name them, but it is the most trusted retail chain in India on one side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum is a small, relatively small, I shouldn't say very small, a food joint, a chain of food restaurants based out of South India. So basically, you'll find them in Chennai and Bangalore. It's a restaurant chain. Now, when I was talking to the CEO of this company, I was asking him, how's the business doing, the restaurant, the retailer. He told me that 300 crores of jewelry was purchased during COVID time, and not a single customer stepped into the showroom.
So that Ganesh, in dollars terms, that's about $40 million? $40
million. I mean, it's a big money. I mean, it's just people buying jewelry, which is a discretionary spend, not even entering into the showroom. So I asked him, how did he do it? And I will give you this example because it opened my eyes. So what enabled, and then he said, I want to expand this to all my stores. I want this to be the way of life for us. even post-COVID. Not only the stores, which kind of entrepreneurially tried something out. So I asked him, so what would you need? He looked at me as a telco and said, I want to make sure that all the retail stores are connected. I just want to make sure that, people, my CIO tells me that I need bandwidth. So can you give me bandwidth in every part of the store? I said, sure. How many stores they have? They have 25,000 stores in small towns. I said, we could connect all of them. Okay. So I said, what else do you need? Well, we need Wi-Fi inside the store, looks like. So we could do Wi-Fi. So it kind of expanded my horizon and say, I shouldn't stop at just giving him bandwidth. I can do managed Wi-Fi. Then I said, okay, if you have this and this, what else your salesperson needs? Said, we need good device. I mean, we are equipping them with a tablet so that they can show the jewelry nicely, or, he's into other fashion as well. So I could show them to the customer who's sitting in the store, and he can actually consultative selling, right? For them, the consultative selling is a big part. So I can give you the device, I can load a SIM, and I could do that as well. Then what happens next? Then he says, I want to make sure that I can show this on video and in a seamless fashion. So we could bring a video collaboration, so we can do that. Then he said, I want to store all of this in the cloud and make sure that, if somebody does a great sale, it's a big sale, I can actually immediately send them a message. That'll be really motivating for my store. I said, yeah, we could store this video in our cloud, and we can program it to say that if the amount of sale was bigger than this, I can actually send you a message on SMS and you can forward it. Now, immediately, you think of the digital transformation of him. Now he has got this trusted 20,000 stores. Suddenly, these stores have become digital stores, interacting with customers real time and selling without anybody stepping in. And for me, as a proud telco, I could participate in all of this. We don't want to stop in participating in just giving you connectivity. I can give you connectivity. I can give you managed Wi-Fi. I can store the video on the cloud. I can give you a collaboration device. I can give you a device. All of this is there. So this is a very sophisticated retail CEO thinking post-COVID. He thinks that the shopping behavior is going to change. And he wants to be ahead of this, enabling it. And I'll give you the other example, this restaurant owner. So I was talking to him. He's got like 100 restaurants. We give phone SIM cards. I was just not expecting anything from him. He said he's a US educator. He's come back. He's taken over the business, second generation entrepreneur. He said, look, I have all these videos, and I would want to make sure that my customers are having a great experience in the restaurant. I want to know which restaurant is having a long queue at a particular time, so I can actually know what's going on. I want to make sure that my inventory is stacked properly. My staff is wearing the proper gear, so that at every point sitting here, I would know what is going on in my 200 restaurants. I have all these video cameras I put up everywhere, but I can't do anything with it because there's no connectivity to it. So I said, okay, tell me a little bit more. I mean, how many cameras do you have? Well, they have all the hardware. I can connect all the stores into my data center. We have the data center. I can take all the video feed into my data center. So all it needs now is a small video analytics program on top, which programs whenever somebody doesn't have a helmet, I can send the thing. Whenever there is a big line, I can send a message. So digital transformation for him is customer experience in every one of his restaurants. So he can actually watch this sitting in his place. Not only watch it, he gets, Now, as a telco, in a very traditional telco, I would tell him, great, I'll give you all the connectivity you need. Go to a startup and he will give you video analytics software, and go to somebody else who will give you a data center. Now we want to participate in all of it because we know we can do all of this. So that is the transformation you're seeing from the customer side and from a telco side.
Perfect. Alain.
Yeah, I just want to say this is a beautiful story that Ganesh is telling us. It is actually the story of knowing the needs from the enterprise to drive the telco transformation. So it's really, to paraphrase Greg, an outside-in kind of view, and a great thank you for that. And you can be absolutely happy, Ganesh, because they will never stop asking you for something new. The what's next question that you will ask is an endless story. So that is very good. There is one thing I would like perhaps to remember is, as you increase this level of services and the functionality, there is one thing that you increase as well, is the attack surface. As you go about connecting all these business processes, streaming these videos, using more of these cameras to see the size of the queue, you increase the attack surface. And we witnessed that on a daily basis. And at the same time that you enable that, you have to leave the paradox between connect, which means opening, and protect, that sometimes means closing, or segmenting, or tunneling, or VPNs. And that is a second engine that now has to be taken into account by the same token. Because we were all part, we are about the same age, and we were all part of these big transformation projects where we say, oops, this is beautiful, but did we not forget a little things called security somewhere? And we had to go back to the drawing board and rethink completely the business process in the light of cybersecurity. Now, I witness a big change, which is the merger of the two categories, the networking and the security, into one. And it needs to be designed as one and deployed as one. And back to, I think it was Greg also, perhaps Kartik mentioning the human dimension. We have to rally people to the security cause. Because as we go about increasing the authentication, making it two-factor, or reducing the size of a segment, we're going to introduce a little bit maybe of delay or a little bit more of complexity. And if we don't explain to people what is at stake, and what is at stake is there was 1.5 million attacks in India in the first quarter of 2020. This is what is at stake. This beautiful retail store in its digital transformation can be killed into moving to this. And actually, I'm not saying that. The one who says that is the founder of the World Economic Forum, where we were speaking 2 weeks from now in the cybersecurity emanation of the World Economic Forum. And basically, Klaus Schwab, who is the founder, right? You go into this beautiful corridor in Geneva, he's got a picture of him, of every single chief of state of every country for the last 40 years. You know, nobody has a gallery of pictures like Klaus Schwab. And he says, if we don't secure the exchange, what he calls the fourth industrial revolution, which is the merger of the biological world, the IT world, and the physical world, may turn into a nightmare. And you know what the World Economic Forum is, guys, right? It's the big boys and the big girls of this world. 5 years ago, they could not spell cybersecurity. You know, they have no idea of who we were, and now they're making a special event just for us. It's called Center for Cybersecurity, and I get to speak to this in front of all these big boys and girls, right? So this gives you in my opinion, what is at stake has to be explained to the enterprise that are so focused on their growth and digital innovation that sometimes they might be tempted to forget this cybersecurity dimension. And here again, the telco has a fundamental role to play, to explain
Absolutely.
and to provide that at the same time.
No, absolutely great. Prateek, I think it's a great segue to bring you, and then Kartik, you. Prateek, how do you deal with this complexity? Prateek, because you are a conglomerate in some form or fashion. There's content, there's a huge backend expectation around the retail. You have your own sets of brands that you manage. What's the complexity algorithm that is getting played out when you take these kinds of services, which Ganesh and Greg and Alain kind of articulated?
See, if you look at if I were to use ICT as a percentage of the GDP, ICT spend in US is about 4.3%, and in India is about 1.3%. So that just tells you the headway or the headroom that one has in India in terms of the sheer technology adoption. Why has that happened? And I think there are a couple of reasons for that. The biggest segment or the most difficult segment in any industry, it's not in technology, it could be in banking, it could be in steel, is the SME segment. because they are not located in business districts or CBDs. They're widely spread and their ticket size is very, very small. So typically, any industry has done two approaches to catering to the SMB segment. Either large enterprise down, saying, okay, this is the product I've created for large enterprise. I'll remove those 2-3 features and I'll sell it to SMB. Or more often than not, retail plus. This is what I sell to a consumer. I will add those 2-3 features and I'll sell it to the SMB. And that's where I think because SMBs don't need either of those. They are a different segment. Their needs are different. They want to be treated as enterprise, but they don't have the wherewithal of a large enterprise. So how do you create products and services which are truly catering to them, not retail plus plus or large enterprise minus minus? And I think that's the big problem that we are trying to solve. And for you to solve that problem and to move the 1.3% ICT spend in the country to 4.3 or 3.9, which China has, it is the need. You need SMB first product mindset. You need to create products for that segment only, forgetting large enterprise, and that is where the need of a shrink wrapped product, because they don't have a IT organization to do a system integration, to do a project, get a team of KPMG and say, why don't you guys kind of execute? It's going to be the owner driven who wants it, who understands that he wants to solve a business need. He understands that he needs technology, but it needs to be done in a simplified manner, not an 18-month long project. So for that to happen, I think what helps us is the fact that we are in so many industries. We learn the nuances of that industry. And the whole trick is in keeping the complexity inside, but making it simple for the customer. And I think anybody who can crack that formula would be successful, because you truly have to create products which are ready to use, plug and play, but enterprise class. And I think that's where the trick is. It has to be enterprise class. It is not consumer product, yet it is plug and play. And whether it's the GeoMeet solution that we have launched recently, or launching attendance, which allows the employees are spread over. The managers want to know whether their employees are logging in at a specific location. So geolocation based attendance. We are providing those solutions where for the corporate and for the small business, it's simple plug and play. He goes to an app and does that, and keeping the complexity outside. So I think that's what has been our formula of creating products for the SMB segment.
No, I think Prateek, absolutely brilliant that the abstraction. Kartik, I'm going to change it and pepper it a little bit for you. And I would like Vodafone Idea's view around and your view around how do you bring it. So this whole element of how do you sell to the large players, or how do you sell to players, this whole digital transformation story. Ganesh's example was a use case driven piece. So there are two parts to this question. One is the fact that you'll have to bring in the concept of how do you educate your sales guys. So that's one, right? And the second is, what's the skill set that Vodafone Idea has to kind of now look at for them to be able to capitalize this journey, and so that they can then start making the most out of it. Because I think the people skill is, Kartik, in our mind, is going to be very, very critical, because we got to talk to some different buyers, we got to talk to some different people. So how do you guys capitalize on this opportunity?
You're on mute, Kartik.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think great question. I think some of the points that Prateek mentioned and Ganesh mentioned as well, resonates quite well with me as well. I think one of the things that enterprises, especially telco enterprises, really do well is have a deep understanding of customers. I think that's where it really starts. And I think, having said that, that's how we are able to kind of cater to the entire spectrum of customers. It's not just SMB, it's not just government or SOHO customers, large customers, but the entire spectrum of it. And the reason why this is extremely important is that in the past, the way telcos were oriented, we can say, I think the approach was largely one shoe fits all size, because our products and services used to be like that, right? But now, with the advent of so many different demands which is coming in the wake of this digital transformation that customers are seeking, I don't think so there is any one particular expertise that the telco, especially the enterprise, division can kind of come up with, right? And saying I can only do this or I can only do that. So that leads to point two, saying how do we kind of orient ourselves with respect to servicing our customers. Because the first point, I have been servicing my telecom enterprise customers for such a long period of time for all basic services. There is a very deep trust which is already established. They are comfortable with us, depending on whether they're large or small, and they do come back to us and saying, listen, hey, can you do a little bit more? This is a place that I'm looking at. And I think that's where the entire journey for us begins, where we then go back and debate amongst ourselves, saying, is there a larger opportunity out there? Am I seeing a pattern? Do I need to, kind of build this myself? Do I need to collaborate with somebody else? Or do I need to, probably, build and buy and put all of this together to kind of service the customer? But I think the more important question, Aditya, you asked was, more related internally. I think that's a major transformation that needs to take place. Especially, most telco guys over a longer period of time has been saying, hey, listen, this is my truck. These are all the goods. Please choose what you want. And you can pick any one of them and go ahead, right? I think the transformation which has taken place really is nuanced. It's more consulting system integrator approach, if I have to say. And therefore, the first point that I mentioned, saying, the deep understanding of customers is what really kind of the relationship is already, but is really what kind of helps us. Definitely, I think there is a major need to kind of systematically train sales guys over a longer period of time and take them to an approach where essentially I think we ease them into from some of the newer products and services, and finally, as the overall pure telco transforms into a techco, we would be able to kind of reach that journey. But it will take a long time. It won't be easy.
No, absolutely, Kartik. Folks, team, Jagdish from Tech Mahindra has joined us. Jagdish had a conflict. He just could not bail himself out. Jagdish, you've been well warmed up. There's been some amazing discussions. We're almost at the last segment. So, Jagdish, what I'm going to do is I'm going to straight away put you from fire to frying pan. I'm assuming that you had a call which would have been where there was your dousing fires. So, Jagdish, I do understand that Tech Mahindra is a critical player. We've seen them focus on the journey with telcos for a long time. How do you see, or Jagdish, let me make it a little bit more specific. What are the 2 or 3 attributes that you see that a telco should have for them to be seen as a digital transformation person or a digital transformation partner?
Hi, thanks everybody. Thanks Aditya for the opportunity. These are all colleagues, partners, customers of ours in TechM, so absolutely honored to be here. I think telcos are already seen as digital partners. So first of all, I think they are seen as the key. I mean, at least we carry that story based on the experience that we have with telecom, saying at the end of it, the digital superhighway on which a fintech or a health tech or any other tech is getting built around the world is on the back.
Apologies, I'm interrupting you, but Ganesh has already talked of valuation right up front. So he was saying, why am I not getting 20x valuation and why does they get it? So you are scratching the right surface.
I know. I've been eavesdropping. So from our perspective, it's absolutely important that backbone is absolutely where all the value gets created. I think a couple of things that I think as a partner, I'm starting to see in telcos and probably encourage them to do a lot more, is to move up from what they used to be primarily as infrastructure providers. So from an infrastructure provider to a journey of what could probably be a platform as a service provider is where I think the opportunity lies for telcos to move towards a digital transformation provider. And that's where I see the biggest opportunity. By platforms, I mean platforms for enabling commerce, platforms for enabling retail, platforms for enabling healthcare decisions, every industry that could be the big bridge connector that telcos can do. One. Number two, I think, which most of them do is, it's not a tongue-in-cheek comment, it's absolutely a serious comment, is to truly see people like us as partners. We understand the enterprise business reasonably well because we serve the technology needs and the business needs of a bank or a retail company or a manufacturing setup or so and so forth. And the collaboration between us and telco can absolutely be stupendous. So that coming together from both sides, and I think is important, not as a reseller type story, but as a joint go-to-market story, which is where the second lever of telco's digital transformation journey lies. The third lever on this is being able to do more and more in terms of the analytics part. I think we today telcos leave a significant amount of their value in not delivering the analytics part of the data that they let them transport, right? So if that can be done, it can absolutely make sure that the level of enterprise connect that becomes for telcos and the digital transformation for businesses. Because, for our personal communication, telcos are the place that we tend to go to. Why enterprise business communications or enterprise business transformation, that's where it needs to probably transform. Yeah, Aditya, sorry.
Perfect. No, Jagdish, great. So what we're going to do, we'll open a rapid fire. And for Greg and Alan, we don't have a gift hamper. Usually, on the rapid fire side, we do give gift hampers out here. But let's do this one, a little bit interesting. Greg, we'll start with you, and then I'm just going to move this around. So 2 points that the telcos need to do, and 2 points they need to stop doing.
The easiest thing I think every telco should do, they should Google themselves and they should call themselves. And I talk about this all the time, particularly on the business side. If you want, I mentioned this earlier, I think we have a tendency to think of things in older terms, but unfortunately we're all getting older and our customers are getting younger, relatively speaking. And think about how we buy, we Google it. And so I think whatever service you're offering, you should go in Google, type in your own brand and that service and see where you show up on the page, or if you show up. That's rule one. And I think the other thing you should do is call yourself. I won't say the name, but I can think of, I actually recorded and played back for a tier 1 carrier in the United States what it means to call their 800 number on the bottom of their website associated with the business services page. It took 1 minute and 30 seconds of listening and following prompts before you got to a person who was associated with the service on the web page. Right? And I think those are the things that I think are most important. I'll just leave it there for the sake of time.
Excellent. Prateek, the do's and the 2 don'ts. Prateek, you're on mute. Sorry, Prateek, you're on mute. There you go. Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah. To be a digital enabler, you have no option but to step into customer shoes. So intimately understand customer business, absolute must do. To simplify, I think the journey, more the friction, more the dropouts. Absolutely true. 2 things. Get the UI UX mindset and telco, I think, or in a telecom company, I think that's what you shouldn't behave like a large enterprise. And I say that because large enterprise equal to slowness, and I think that's something. How do you cater to all of these? Be big, but keep the startup mindset. That's one. And 2, use technology only when it's solving a customer problem, not for the heck of using a technology. So I think keep customer again front and center in terms of product creation. So don't create a product and then try selling it.
Perfect. Alan, what's the 2?
One thing is to continue to reinvent themselves from voice to telco, to service providers, to digital enable. Please, please, please come with the next one, because we need that. Continue to reinvent yourself. The second thing, in my opinion, you need to do is faster, faster, and faster. We need faster telecommunications. We need to be able to drive cars remotely. We need to be able to do surgery and with no jitter, no delay, no packet loss, because a human life is at stake. The things that, in my opinion, they should stop, or they should never do, is to consider themselves different animals. They are an enterprise. They are part of the enterprise. They are immersed in the ecosystem of enterprise. So they are an enterprise. So live it. Don't believe you are so different that you are a different breed. You are part of us. You are fundamental, but part of us. And the thing that should never do is to stop doing all the above, because it's a permanent motion that leads to progress, and that progress will never stop. We're waiting for 5G to be everywhere. I want 5G to be in my garden for my watering system. So please, guys, I welcome it.
Perfect, Alan. Kartik, 2 by 2.
Yeah, I think. I think I'll touch on the most sensitive topic where all telecom industries kind of face. I think globally, I think most people, and this is a less known secret, globally the telecom industry NPS is a negative number. And I think there is, if one thing, I think all telcos globally need to kind of genuinely focus on is customer service. I think that's a really important point. Sometimes because of the scale we operate in, we miss the mark. And I think the other thing really is on digital transformation. Because of the largeness of most telcos, I don't think so it's a moment in time to arrive at. I think it needs to be absolutely continuous. And I think on some of the stuff Greg mentioned, completely echo. I think we need to get constant feedback to ourselves as to what's happening, and then look at transforming ourselves. So 2 points on that.
Ganesh, your 2 by 2.
Yeah. So, first one is I would say never lose the pride of being a telco. I think the connectivity is what everything drives, and we want to continue to invest in all forms of connectivity. At least in Airtel, we want to make sure we are the connectivity backbone. So we're not going to stay away. So telcos should be very, very proud of their connectivity backbone and continue to invest in it. Second one is never look to build everything yourself. I think there is a phenomenal ecosystem available. Be an enabler of the ecosystem. What they shouldn't do, they should never be a startup and start losing money. I think telcos are great. They have very high EBITDA margin. So please don't fall into the system of unit economics and try to screw up the business. I think that's very important. Second is just don't hire from telecoms alone. Hire from outside, people like me, so you will bring new talent.
Well, absolutely. And Jagdish, your 2 by 2 very quickly.
Well, I think what they should continue to do is to continue to build the network that they have been so fantastically doing. It's the backbone of the new world, the new economy, and that's never going to die down. It's probably going to expand. On the second part, more life to 5G, I was thinking probably invest more in next generation 6G as well. So, the more you create bandwidth, I think the more applications will come into it's a leader story. So the moment you create more pipe and the width of the pipe, the size of the applications are bound to fulfill, and it will drive a very different experience. So telcos should never forget that they are the backbone of delivering digital experience. The areas that they shouldn't do or drop is probably things like running it end to end, which I talked about in my previous conversation. They need to build a lot more partnership with specialist units which know certain parts of the business and what they know. This is a world of collaboration, and I think that's a very strong area for telcos to collaborate in. The second area that probably they should not get into is, I think, trying to run different types of businesses. That's my view, that they are very close to telecom and media and entertainment, and that's what they should probably stick to. I would not suggest or see telcos trying to become, healthcare companies, retail companies, banks. I'm not sure whether that's a great idea.
Absolutely. In case you have been wondering what the last 60 minutes have been, it's a masterclass of everything that a telecom company, a tech company, a platform company, a digital company is doing to transform itself, its enterprise connect. I think we've summarized it beautifully in terms of a typical consultant's 2x2. You should not have expected anything different if you have a consultant as a moderator. So I had to get a 2x2 out there. But the dots in the 2x2 kind of spoke a lot of things. It spoke about how complexity has to be handled, how people skills are important, how listening to customers are important, how continuous evolution is important. This has been an absolute pleasure to get this wonderful, experienced audience in front of you. We have loved bringing it in. So do continue watching and enjoy the India Mobile Congress 2020 in this new avatar. Thank you, everyone, for watching and tuning in. Thank you, panelists. This has been absolutely a pleasure having you here.